There are moments when life feels like it's standing on the edge of something, moments when nothing has changed yet, but everything feels different. You go through your days sensing a quiet tension beneath the surface. Familiar routines feel less stable. Old comforts no longer comfort the way they used to. You're still moving forward, still functioning, but deep inside you know, this season is not like the ones before it. According to the Bible, God rarely changes everything in your life without first changing how you experience the present. Before He moves visibly, He moves invisibly. Before circumstances shift, your spirit begins to stir. And that stirring can feel unsettling, confusing, even uncomfortable, especially if you don't recognize what it is. You may find yourself questioning things you once accepted without thought. Paths you assumed were permanent now feel uncertain. You sense that staying the same will cost you more than moving forward, even though you can't yet see what forward looks like. This is not fear. This is not failure. This is often preparation. God does not disrupt lives randomly. When He is about to change everything, He sends signs, not to overwhelm you, but to prepare you. These signs don't usually come with loud announcements or dramatic warnings. They come quietly, personally, and persistently. They show up in how you think, how you feel, how you respond, and how your heart begins to shift. You may feel a growing restlessness that has no clear cause, a sense that something is ending, even if nothing has officially ended yet. You may feel pressure, not the kind that pushes you away from God, but the kind that draws you closer, forcing you to grow, mature, and let go. At the same time, you might notice moments of peace appearing in unexpected places, as if God is steadying you for something ahead. Scripture shows us this pattern again and again. Before God moves His people into a new chapter, He prepares them internally. He loosens their grip on what they cannot carry forward. He sharpens their discernment. He teaches them to trust Him without needing full clarity. What feels like confusion is often alignment forming. What feels like loss is often protection at work. This season may feel contradictory. You may feel both unsettled and strangely calm, both stretched and strengthened, both uncertain and deeply aware that God is near. These mixed emotions are not accidents. They are often the space where transformation begins. If you've sensed that something in your life is shifting, if your heart feels heavier and lighter at the same time. Number 1, God begins to disrupt what once felt stable. One of the clearest signs that God is about to change everything in your life is that what once felt stable no longer feels secure. Not because it suddenly became wrong, but because it is no longer where you are meant to remain. The routines that once gave you comfort begin to feel restrictive. The patterns that once brought peace now feel heavy. You sense, sometimes quietly and sometimes urgently, that staying where you are will cost you more than moving forward, even though moving forward feels uncertain. This disruption often begins internally. On the outside, life may look the same, but inside something feels unsettled. You may feel restless without knowing why, dissatisfied without being ungrateful. These feelings are not signs of spiritual weakness. They are often signs of spiritual awakening. According to the Bible, God frequently unsettles what is familiar before He introduces what is necessary. You may begin to question long-standing assumptions. Things you once accepted without thought suddenly demand re-evaluation. Environments that once felt safe now feel limiting. This isn't because those things were evil. It's because they were temporary. God is revealing that what sustained you before cannot carry you into what's next. In Scripture, God often disrupted false peace before releasing true peace. He disturbed the familiar so His people would follow Him into deeper trust. This is why disruption often feels inconvenient. It asks you to loosen your grip on what you understand and lean into what God is preparing. If life feels unsettled right now, resist the urge to immediately restore comfort. Don't rush to recreate what God is gently shaking. Ask instead what He may be preparing to change. Disruption is rarely the end. It is usually the first whisper of transformation. Number 2, doors close without explanation, but peace slowly appears. Another powerful sign that God is about to change everything in your life is when doors begin to close without clear explanation. And yet, instead of panic, a quiet peace starts to take their place. Opportunities end. Relationships shift. Plans you were confident in suddenly stall or fall apart. There is no dramatic reason, no obvious failure, just an unmistakable sense that something is finished. At first, these closed doors can feel confusing or even painful. The natural response is to question yourself, replay decisions, or try to force what once seemed right back into place. But over time, something unexpected happens. The anxiety fades, the urgency dissolves, and in its place, a calm acceptance begins to settle in your spirit. According to the Bible, God often closes doors not to punish, but to protect. What looks like loss on the surface is frequently redirection underneath. God sees paths you cannot see and outcomes you cannot predict. This peace is important. If God were simply removing something without purpose, your spirit would remain restless. But when peace follows closure, it is a sign that God's hand is involved. Peace does not mean you understand the reason. It means you trust the one who does. You may notice that, even though something ended, you no longer feel compelled to chase it. The desire fades, the attachment loosens. You stop rehearsing what could have been. This is not indifference, it is surrender forming. God is teaching you how to let go without bitterness, how to release without resentment. Closed doors also clarify priorities. They strip away distractions and reveal where your trust truly lies. God is preparing you for a new chapter, and not everything can come with you. What ends now is making room for what will begin later. If doors are closing in your life and peace is quietly replacing resistance, do not fear the ending. God rarely closes one chapter without already holding the next. What feels like an interruption is often divine preparation. Number 3, your inner world changes before your outer world does. One of the most overlooked signs that God is about to change everything in your life is that the transformation begins on the inside long before anything changes on the outside. Your circumstances may look exactly the same, but you are not the same person within them anymore. Your thoughts shift, your desires realign, your tolerance for certain things quietly disappears. You begin to notice changes in what matters to you. Things that once consumed your attention no longer hold the same power. Conversations feel different. Priorities rearrange themselves. You may feel less driven by urgency and more guided by discernment. This internal shift can feel confusing, especially when nothing around you has caught up yet. According to the Bible, God almost always works this way. He prepares the vessel before he pours out what it is meant to carry. If your inner world remained unchanged, the outer change would overwhelm you. So God starts with the heart. He reshapes how you see, how you respond, and how you trust. You may notice that your reactions soften. You pause more before responding. You listen more carefully. You become aware of motives, both yours and others. God is refining your inner posture because what is coming will require wisdom, humility, and stability, not just excitement. This inner change can also bring a sense of distance from your old self. You may look at choices you once made and realize they no longer fit who you are becoming. This is not regret, it is growth. God is gently closing the gap between who you are and who He is calling you to be. At times, this stage feels lonely because few people can see what is happening inside you. Others may not understand why you're changing or why you're no longer driven by the same things. But God is doing a deep work, one that does not need validation to be real. If your heart feels different lately, more aware, more sensitive, more aligned, do not dismiss it. God is changing you internally so that when everything changes externally, you will be ready to walk into it with clarity and peace. Number 4, isolation increases while discernment sharpens. Another sign that God is about to change everything in your life is a season where isolation increases. Not because you are being rejected, but because you are being prepared. You may notice that your circle grows smaller. Conversations feel fewer but deeper. Time alone becomes more frequent, sometimes by circumstance, sometimes by desire. What once felt lonely begins to feel necessary. This kind of isolation is not abandonment. According to the Bible, God often separates before He elevates. He pulls people away from noise so they can hear clearly. When too many voices surround you, it becomes difficult to discern which ones are shaping your decisions. So God creates space, not to empty you but to speak to you. As isolation increases, discernment sharpens. You begin to see more clearly what aligns with God's will and what quietly pulls you away from it. You recognize patterns you once ignored. You sense when something is off, even if you can't fully explain why. This clarity is not suspicion. It is spiritual maturity forming. You may find that certain relationships no longer resonate, not because others are wrong, but because you are changing. God is adjusting your sensitivity so that when He moves you forward, you are not easily distracted or misled. Discernment becomes essential when transition is near. This season can feel uncomfortable because it removes external affirmation. You are no longer guided by constant feedback or approval. Instead, you learn to rely on God's voice alone. This builds confidence that is rooted in truth, not opinion. If you are feeling more alone than usual, resist the urge to fill the space prematurely. Let the quiet do its work. Let clarity grow. God often prepares His people in hidden places before revealing what He has prepared publicly. Isolation paired with discernment is not a setback. It is a signal that God is positioning you carefully. What He is about to change will require focus, wisdom, and the ability to hear Him clearly. And this season is shaping. Number 5. Pressure intensifies, but so does spiritual strength. As God prepares to change everything in your life, pressure often increases. Not random pressure, but focused pressure. Pressure that tests your patience, your faith, and your endurance. Situations feel heavier. Responsibilities feel more demanding. Resistance appears where progress once felt smooth. And yet, alongside this pressure, something else grows quietly within you: strength. According to the Bible, pressure is never wasted in God's hands. He does not allow it to crush you, He allows it to shape you. Just as weight builds muscle, spiritual pressure builds capacity. God is enlarging what you can carry because what is coming will require it. You may notice that challenges no longer overwhelm you the way they once did. You still feel the weight, but you are not breaking under it. You are learning how to stand, how to pray through difficulty, how to remain steady when circumstances push back. This is not because life has become easier, it is because you are becoming stronger. You may feel tempted to escape this season, to wish it away or rush through it, but God often does His deepest work under pressure. He teaches you endurance, He deepens your trust. He shows you that your strength is not coming from yourself but from Him. In Scripture, moments of greatest pressure often came just before breakthrough. The resistance was not a sign of failure, it was a sign of proximity. God was close, the change was near. If life feels heavier right now, do not assume you are falling behind. You may be standing at the edge of transformation. The pressure you feel is not meant to stop you, it is meant to prepare you. And as God increases the pressure, He also increases your strength, quietly, steadily, faithfully. Number 6. Old versions of you no longer fit. One of the clearest signs that God is about to change everything in your life is the growing awareness that the old version of you no longer fits where you are headed. Ways of thinking that once felt natural now feel limiting. Habits you once tolerated begin to feel heavy. Roles you once embraced no longer align with who you are becoming. This shift can be unsettling because identity is familiar. Even unhealthy patterns can feel safe simply because they are known. But God never leads people forward while allowing them to remain unchanged. According to the Bible, transformation always involves leaving something behind, not as punishment but as preparation. You may find yourself looking back at choices you once made and realizing they no longer resonate, not with regret, but with clarity. God is not condemning who you were. He is honoring growth by showing you who you are becoming. The discomfort you feel is not loss, it is transition. Old reactions begin to fade. You respond differently to stress. You pause instead of reacting. You value peace over proving a point. These changes may feel subtle, but they are significant. God is reshaping your character, because what is ahead will require maturity, not just opportunity. You may also notice resistance when trying to return to old patterns. What once felt normal now feels forced. This is intentional. God closes the door on former versions of you so you don't retreat when the new path feels unfamiliar. He knows that if you could go back comfortably, you might. In Scripture, God consistently led people away from who they were before revealing who they were meant to become. He does the same today. He allows you to outgrow your old self so you can step into what aligns with His purpose. If you feel like you don't fully recognize yourself anymore, but you sense growth, clarity, and peace beneath the discomfort, do not fear it. You are not losing yourself. You are being prepared for a life that requires a new level of faith, strength, and trust. Number 7. A quiet peace settles even without answers. One of the most powerful signs that God is about to change everything in your life is the arrival of a quiet, steady peace. Even when your questions remain unanswered, circumstances may still be uncertain, the path ahead may still be unclear, and yet, something within you calms. Anxiety no longer dominates your thoughts. Urgency gives way to trust. This peace does not come from understanding what God is doing, it comes from trusting who He is. According to the Bible, this kind of peace is not logical, it is spiritual. It guards your heart not because everything is resolved, but because God is present. You may notice that situations that once caused fear now produce patience. You wait without panic. You move without forcing outcomes. You are no longer chasing certainty, because you have confidence in God's timing. This peace is not passivity, it is alignment. God often gives peace before He changes anything around you. It is His way of stabilizing you so the change does not overwhelm you when it arrives. He knows that without peace, you would rush ahead or resist what He is doing, so He calms your spirit first. This peace also protects you from doubt. When fear tries to speak, peace reminds you that God is already at work. You don't need to see everything to trust everything. You don't need answers to remain faithful. If you feel calm in a season that should logically feel stressful, do not dismiss it. This peace is not accidental. It is confirmation. It is God's quiet assurance that you are being led, not lost. When peace settles before clarity, it is often because transformation is already in motion. And that peace is one of the clearest signs that God is about to change everything in your life. Conclusion. When God is about to change everything in your life, He does not rush the process, and He does not leave you unprepared. He works quietly, intentionally, and deeply. What you have experienced in this season was never random. The disruption, the closed doors, the inner shifts, the isolation, the pressure, the outgrowing of old versions of yourself, and the unexpected peace were all part of a divine pattern. God changes lives from the inside out. He prepares the heart before He rearranges circumstances. He strengthens faith before He expands influence. He teaches trust before He reveals direction. What feels confusing now is often clarity and formation. What feels like delay is often protection. And what feels like loss is frequently the clearing of space for something greater. If you recognize these signs in your life, do not be afraid of the season. This is not the time to return to what was comfortable. It is the time to remain faithful to what God is doing now. Trust the process, stay attentive, keep your heart open. God never begins a transformation He does not intend to complete. And when everything finally shifts, when the change becomes visible, you will understand that this season was not something to escape, but something that prepared you. God was closer than you realized. He was working more deeply than you could see. What he is about to do will be worth the waiting.